everybody, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact video, and today we're going to be doing a Venti guide. So I know this is a little bit late and Venti did just leave, but for those of you that did get Venti, I wanted to actually drop a guide for you guys and cover everything you need to know about Venti. Luckily he's not a very complicated character, so this is probably going to be kind of a short guide, and yeah, let's just get right to it. Alright, so when we talk about weapons for Venti, he really only has like a few options, and he's actually pretty easy when it comes to putting weapons on him. Your best weapon is probably going to be the Stringless as a 4-star, and then for 5 stars it's really anything that you can get your hands on. For example, the Elegy is actually a really good 5-star bow, or the Skyward Harp, or really anything other than that. Like, just 5-star bows are very strong for Venti, but honestly, if you want to build them as free to play and very low investment as possible, just give them a Stringless, a 4-star Stringless. If you don't have that, then I guess you could do something like the Favonius or the Sacrificial Bow, but honestly your best bet is going to be the Stringless if you can get your hands on it. In this section we're going to quickly talk about artifacts, but obviously I didn't really cover too much in the weapons, but the reason you're going to be running the Stringless is because you want to stack as much elemental mastery as possible on Venti. If you're going for this is just a basic low investment build. That's what Venti has. So he has a high investment build where you build him as a crit character that does damage, or you go for elemental mastery, which is very free to play friendly, which is what I would recommend, because not a lot of people are going to go through all the time of, especially when you just get Venti, it's going to cost a lot of artifacts and investment in order to get them into that crit build. I would recommend go elemental mastery, save yourself the resources, and yeah. So now let's actually get into the part about building Venti. So I mean, it's going to be pretty straightforward. Get a 4-piece Viridescent set, and then try to stack as much elemental mastery as possible. You're not really, and that's pretty much going to be it. You're not really looking for anything else. Luckily he does scale with energy recharge as an ascension stat, I'm pretty sure. That or elemental mastery, I don't know, but he does get a lot of energy, so you don't really need to run ER Sands on him because he does get his ult back very quickly. As long as you have some ER substats that you can get on some of your artifacts, you'll be all set. But yeah, just look for as much elemental mastery starting off, so get those main stat pieces, 4-piece Viridescent, and yeah, that's what makes Venti probably one of the easiest characters to build in the game. You could also, if you were going to do a crit build, say you have Venti for a while, then you can just, I mean, it's going to be straightforward. It's going to be, I think, attack percent, Animal Goblet, and then crit rate, crit damage, probably crit rate circlet, because unless you have really good substats, that's what you're going to want to be doing. But I don't recommend running, like I said, I don't recommend running a crit build because it is very high investment. Sorry. So yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for Venti's artifacts. Not really much to go into depth here. If we cover Constellations, Venti is one of those characters where he doesn't really need Constellations. He's already very broken and good on his own, and yeah, honestly, I'm not really gonna go too in depth about this. Just if you get like C2, that's pretty good because of animal res, and that's pretty much it. Anything else, you're a whale, and there's not much to talk about there. This is a guide pretty much for free-to-play players or low spenders, not for whales. I'm not a whale myself, so I couldn't really give you too much information on that. Anyway, let's get into the next part of the video. Again, Venti being a very easy and free-to-play friendly character, you don't have to touch normal attacks or anything. Just go full on into his burst and then touch his skill, because it has a very high modifier, can do a lot of damage very easily. I would recommend, like I said, just go full into his burst. If you don't know what his burst does, it's low energy cost, 60, and it is a crowd control. That's Venti's niche. He's very good at crowd controlling enemies. He's the best in the game. That's my opinion, but you can make the case that he's even better than Kazuha, because his crowd control has all the way that it's basically a vacuum that sucks everything in and just doesn't let it go at all. If for that specific role of crowd control, I think he's the best character in the game for that. When he can't crowd control, then you can make the case where he's kind of like not very usable. He's not terrible, it's just when he can't group up enemies and actually physically move them, that's where it's like, what do you really have him as a use there, or what is he going to be doing, But he still has his uses regardless if he can't crowd control. But like I said, he has some pretty decent, I mean, this where you get your energy back after you use your burst, it's also pretty good. And yeah, that's, I mean, just upgrade his talent, get as high as possible, and you're good. You don't have to go crazy into it because you are stacking elemental mastery. If you do upgrade, it will help out, it'll do more damage, but it's not essential as to make Venti like broken. What makes him broken is that crowd control. as for the best teams you can run for Venti, it's probably going to be freeze teams, just because he's a great character of applying Animo, or just grouping enemies up together and helping apply Hydro or whatever it is that you need. He's one of the best characters in doing that. So something like the Morgana team or whatever, if I could find a character, another Cryo character. Alright, something like this, like a Morgana team, where I'm substituting obviously Mona for Aito because I don't have Mona, so pretend that's Mona. Venti is it's probably the best Animo character that you can use for this team, just because of how good his crowd control is. And then with Ganyu's burst, they just synergize very, very well together, doing a lot of damage. And Venti just grouping up all the enemies and applying tons of Hydro with, because ideally you would want to swirl Hydro and Cryo, but I don't know, that'd be tough. But ideally you would want to swirl Hydro and his burst, that way when you apply Cryo it's just going to be a perma-freeze. But yeah, this would be Venti's best team, but he can pretty much be run on any team in the game. He's very flexible for that. That's also another one of the reasons why Venti is such a strong character in this game. But I mean, you could also, like I said, you could also make the case of the fact that if he doesn't have crowd control, and he's not able to group up the enemies, he is kind of tough to find a place on the team. And I could say I would agree with you on that. So sorry about that earlier. My mom was calling me, so I kind of just had to cut that out, or well, just cut the video there. But as I was saying, Venti's a very niche character, and he does play a very strong role when he can crowd control, and when he can't, it's kind of tough to use him. However, he does play a very good Animo support on Cryo Teams, and really any team. It's just that he dominates Cryo Teams as one of the best elemental supports you can use. I mean, he's not better than Kazuo or worse. It really just depends what you need, but he's a solid Animo support that you can't go wrong on summoning for. It's just that he's not a must pull like back then, where the Abyss was dominated by Venti and anything could be grouped up. But yeah, for teams, just run him on anything. He's just as flexible as Bennett. You put him on any team that needs an Animo support. But crowd teams are just one of those teams where Animo is very, very strong, because they need Animo to group enemies and apply all the other elements, and also get that swirl shred. But any elemental team can use them. So instead of doing a Venti showcase, I think I'm probably not going to be doing that, just because of the fact that I think everyone has seen a showcase on Venti and knows what he can do. Hopefully that didn't block the screen or anything. I don't know what happened, but pretty much I'm just gonna really explain a couple things about his playstyle, and some things you might not know about him, in this part of the video. So specifically, Venti's artifact set, his 4-piece set. Now, I did drop a TikTok on this, but if you've never heard of it before, the Verdescent set doesn't actually work if he's not on field. So just remember that if you want to swirl an element and get that debuff, you have to have Venti on field, and Venti has to be there to do it. For example, some people think that I shoot Venti's burst and then apply Aito and I'll get the swirl. However, that's a misconception. It won't actually do anything. Sure, Venti will group the enemies up, but he's not debuffing them in any way, because the second you shoot your burst and swap away, he's off field. So if the swirl's not applied when Venti's on field, like basically if there's no Hydro already there, he's not going to swirl Hydro, and it's not going to apply the debuff. It just doesn't work that way. That's simply how the game works, and those are the mechanics. So just remember that if you want to swirl Hydro and get that debuff, you have to apply Hydro first, and then use Venti or any other animal support, and then use their abilities and swirl it. So just remember that. Apply that element first and then swirl it. And that's just remember that. You do that, you'll be good. But if you don't do that, you will not get that debuff, and you'll be wondering why maybe you're not doing as much damage as other people are doing. Another thing you can do with Venti is you can actually cancel his animation for his elemental skill if you go into your burst right after. So I can show that really quick, but if you do this and do that, you cancel the whole elemental skill, and it actually goes through either way. That way you can save yourself a few seconds and get that whole thing off, and don't have to be stuck in that, because it doesn't have any iframes, so you can kind of get hit. I think you can also dash out of it, so you could do that too to get the iframes, but it's a nice little trick that you can do with him if you want to get his elemental skill and his burst off at the same time. And yeah, I think that's going to be pretty much everything about Venti. I covered a little bit of tips that you can know about him, and use this, basically playstyle. That's pretty much what I told you about, and hopefully that helps you guys out. And yeah, in my next video, I'm probably going to be doing something about artifacts and talking about crit values and things like that. But regardless of that, if you guys made it to the end of the video, I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.